The Dodgers are breaking baseball, and MLB has a Shohei problem. Imagine a player so uniquely dominant that the rulebook, written for 32 teams and hundreds of athletes, effectively functions as a personal advantage for just one of them. Not because anyone cheated, not because anyone broke a rule, but because the rule itself was designed with every player in baseball in mind, and only one player alive actually qualifies for it. That is the reality Major League Baseball is living with in 2026. And last night, the Los Angeles Dodgers gave the entire league another reminder of exactly why this conversation isn't going away. The Dodgers walked off the Miami Marlins 5-4 in one of the more dramatic endings of this young season. Shohei Ohtani already had 2 hits on the night before the game even reached its climax. Kyle Tucker, a man who had been grinding through one of the worst slumps of his career, lined a walk-off 2-run single up the middle to send the crowd home. And somewhere in a press box, a Cubs manager named Craig Counsell was either watching or reading about it, quietly building his case. Before we get into all of that, the collision, the suspension, the roster loophole, the teams bleeding out across the National League, we need to walk through exactly what happened last night because the details matter. And hey, if you're new here, Hoop Action TV is less than 1,500 subscribers away from a major milestone, and this channel is built on breakdowns exactly like this one. If you watch this and think, this is the kind of content I want more of, subscribe, hit the like button, drop a comment, and share this video. It genuinely makes a difference. Now let's get into it. The Dodgers and Marlins met for what looked early on like it might be an uncharacteristic night for Los Angeles. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, one of the most composed starters in baseball, had an uncharacteristically rough outing. The Dodgers fell behind. Miami's bullpen was doing its job. Then the 9th inning started. Pete Fairbanks, Miami's closer and the man they signed to a franchise record $13 million deal this offseason, walked out to close it. He had been elite. Coming into this game, he had walked just one of 36 batters all season. That number is not a typo. 1 batter in 36. The man was a machine. Then he walked back-to-back Dodgers hitters to open the inning. Suddenly, with runners on base and the crowd starting to stir, Shohei Ohtani stepped into the batter's box. He already had 2 hits on the night. What happened next was exactly what Ohtani does. He sliced an RBI double to right field that skipped over the wall and brought in a run. Just like that, the Dodgers were back in it. Freddie Freeman got intentionally walked. Bases loaded. 2 runners in scoring position. The Marlins' closer situation was unraveling in real time. Then something stranger happened. Fairbanks started shaking his hand on the mound. Not a nervous habit, not a tic. He couldn't feel his fingers, numbness, nerve issues, the same thing that landed him on the injured list in April 2024. He exited the game without throwing a single warm-up pitch. 9 strikes in 23 pitches, 2 walks, and a hand that wasn't cooperating. Tyler Phillips came in. Will Smith struck out. 2 outs, bases still loaded. And then Kyle Tucker stepped up. Tucker had been dropped from the 2-hole all the way down to cleanup and eventually the 5-hole earlier that week due to early season struggles. The $240 million offseason signing, consensus top free agent of the winter, hadn't found his footing yet. Phillips threw 2 splitters. Tucker saw them both, and then he ripped a walk-off 2-run single up the middle. Dodgers win 5-4. Tucker barely celebrated. He touched first base. He paused. His teammates had to run out to him before it even registered. When asked about the moment after the game, Tucker said, "I was like, did I get the score wrong?" Manager Dave Roberts' post-game was measured but pointed. He needed it. He needed a win. Tucker's walk-off deserves its own segment because what it represents is bigger than one hit. This is a man who signed for $240 million and came to the Dodgers with sky-high expectations. The early season numbers weren't matching the investment. His bat quality in terms of contact, pitch recognition, and approach had all been trending in the right direction. The results just hadn't materialized yet. Getting dropped in the lineup is never comfortable. Getting dropped in the lineup while the entire city of Los Angeles is watching every at-bat is something else entirely. Roberts had been patient. It's only a matter of time. Meanwhile, Dalton Rushing, a former top prospect who had been quietly slotted into the DH role, was posting a 1.429 ops in 12 games. That number puts him in rare air for any hitter at any level. The Dodgers have depth at every position, and Rushing was quietly forcing the coaching staff to make interesting decisions about how to deploy their lineup. That walk-off single may be the moment Kyle Tucker's Dodger career truly begins. Not the signing, not spring training. That 2-run single up the middle in the 9th, bases loaded, 2 outs, season threatening to stay off the rails. That is where careers get made. While the Dodgers were celebrating, Miami was trying to figure out how serious this was. Pete Fairbanks is not just a good closer for the Marlins, he is the closer. He is the centerpiece of their bullpen, signed to a franchise record deal because they believed in his ability to lock down games. The nerve issue in his right hand, the one that caused him to exit without throwing warm-up pitches, is the same condition that sent him to the injured list in April 2024. Fairbanks described the sensation himself. It's like if your thumb were asleep and you're trying to move it as fast as you can. He threw 23 pitches. Only 9 were strikes. He walked 2 batters and didn't record an out. For a pitcher with his profile, that's alarming not just because of the performance, but because of what it signals about his physical condition. The Marlins now face a realistic scenario of operating closer by committee again. Phillips, Nardi, and Faucher are the fallback options. Those are functional bullpen arms, not proven closers. And this is all happening while the Marlins were already in the middle of an 8-game losing streak heading into the series. The severity of the injury is still unclear. But for a team already struggling, losing your franchise closer, even temporarily, is not a problem you can paper over. Now we get to the moment that sent shockwaves through the league. Game 3, Dodgers vs. Cubs. Shohei Ohtani got a solid hit, sprinted past first base and pushed hard towards second. Textbook Ohtani, always working, always looking for extra bases. Nico Herr, the Cubs infielder, rushed in from his defensive position toward the ball. What happened next was captured on slow-motion replay, and the footage is not ambiguous. There was almost no attempt to play the ball. Herr extended both arms and made contact with Ohtani's shoulder and chest. Ohtani nearly fell. And then this is the part that changed the conversation entirely. Herr made a second swinging motion toward Ohtani's hip. That second motion is what made this feel deliberate rather than incidental. In baseball, collisions happen. Fielders and base runners make contact on close plays. But a second motion after the initial contact is not consistent with a player trying to field a ball. It is consistent with a player trying to send a message. Kyle Tucker and Enrique Hernandez immediately moved towards second base. Dave Roberts stormed the field. Ken Rosenthal reporting live. This was not a normal collision in baseball. Herr never tracked the ball. The umpires reviewed the play. Nico Herr was ejected immediately. The Dodgers kept their base runner at second. The crowd was loud and unified. Cubs manager Craig Counsell argued at full volume to the point where he nearly got ejected himself. Major League Baseball moved fast. Commissioner Rob Manfred released an official statement within hours of the game ending. Herr was suspended 3 games and fined $100,000. The entire Cubs team received an official warning. The message from the commissioner's office was clear: this kind of play will not be tolerated. And Roberts, who has managed in this league for years, did not mince words after the game. I've never seen something that disgraceful at the MLB level. If you want to compete, use your skills. Here is where the story gets more complicated and more interesting. Shohei Ohtani is not just a baseball player at this point. He is a commercial phenomenon, a cultural figure, and arguably the most recognizable athlete in the world. The endorsement deals, the jersey sales, the viewership numbers, everything attached to Ohtani is at a scale that doesn't apply to anyone else in the sport. Criticizing anything in his orbit, his play, his treatment, the rules around him has been close to taboo in mainstream sports media. But that started cracking this week. Craig Counsell, the Cubs manager, a man who has been in professional baseball for decades as both a player and a manager, stood up at a Wrigley Field press conference and called the two-way player designation rule one of the strangest rules in MLB. Here's what that rule actually says and does, because the specifics matter enormously. Active MLB rosters are capped at 26 players with a maximum of 13 pitchers. That is the structure every team operates within. The two-way player designation creates an exception. A player who qualifies does not count toward the 13-pitcher limit. In practice, that means the Dodgers can carry the equivalent of 14 pitchers on their active roster. No other team in baseball has access to that structure. To qualify for the two-way designation, a player must have accumulated 20 or more innings pitched and appeared in 20 or more games with at least 3 plate appearances per game in either the current or previous season. Those are the criteria, written for the entire league, applicable to every roster in baseball. The number of active players who can realistically meet those criteria. 1. Shohei Ohtani. This is not a theoretical loophole. The Dodgers gain a concrete roster advantage: an extra bat, an extra bullpen arm, an additional option in extra innings, another body during doubleheaders or injury stretches. Every other team manages with 13 pitchers. The Dodgers manage with 14. Counsell was direct about the tactical reality. The Dodgers gain an extra roster spot that no other team in baseball can access. His key distinction, and it is an important one: recognizing talent and establishing a fair rule system are two entirely separate matters. He is not arguing that Ohtani isn't special. He is arguing that a rule written for the whole league shouldn't function as an exclusive structural advantage for one franchise. This is not sour grapes. This is math. Counsell's frustration didn't come from nowhere. He is managing a team in a crisis. Matthew Boyd on the injured list. Kate Horton on the injured list. The starting rotation has been gutted. Phil Madden, Hunter Harvey, Daniel Palensha, bullpen arms who were supposed to be available options, all unavailable due to injury. The Cubs are operating under the 13-pitcher limit while managing a pitching staff that is stretched to its absolute limit. Every roster decision is a zero-sum calculation. Every move to add a position player means losing a bullpen arm. The Dodgers, meanwhile, are healthy, deep, and operating with an unofficial 14th pitcher slot that no other team in the league can replicate. The competitive asymmetry is not subtle. This isn't just a Cubs problem. Earlier in the 2026 season, the Toronto Blue Jays raised a formal complaint after Ohtani allegedly took longer than the allowed 2 minutes to transition from his role as a batter to his role as a pitcher. George Springer confronted the umpire directly. Manager John Schneider was visibly frustrated. Roberts responded to the controversy by saying, "Ohtani is a completely unique case." That phrase, a completely unique case, is both true and exactly the problem Counsell is pointing to. To understand just how significant the Dodgers' dominance is in context, it helps to look at what is happening across the rest of the league simultaneously. The New York Mets entered the stretch at 8-16 with a 12-game losing streak on the books. Francisco Lindor was hurt. The pitching staff was inconsistent. The panic meter in New York was sitting at an 8 out of 10. The Philadelphia Phillies 8-16, a run differential of -50, an 8-game losing streak. That run differential number is not a projection. It is a concrete reflection of how badly they have been outscored this season. Their panic meter 9. The Houston Astros 10-16 with 7 starting pitchers currently on the injured list. The dynasty that dominated the American League for years is crumbling in real time. Panic meter 9. The Boston Red Sox 9-15 with their starter Crockett posting an ERA near 8, on pace for what would be the worst season the franchise has produced since 1932. These franchises are competing at a disadvantage. Not because of one rule, not because of Ohtani specifically, but the broader point Counsell is making has real context when you look at the landscape. The Dodgers are at 20 wins. Ohtani is pitching with a 0.38 ERA and is 2-0 on the mound this season. He has been delivering back-to-back 3-hit games at the plate. Tucker just walked off the Marlins. The roster structure is unlike anything any other team can replicate. The question is not whether Ohtani is extraordinary. He clearly is. His performance on both sides of the ball is historically unprecedented. No player in the history of professional baseball has ever done what he is doing at this level. The question is this: should one player's extraordinary ability create a structural competitive imbalance that no rule change can address until he retires? That is the question Craig Counsell is asking. That is the question multiple managers and front offices are privately discussing. And that is the question Commissioner Rob Manfred will eventually have to answer publicly, because the Dodgers are not slowing down, Ohtani is not declining, and the math does not change on its own. Ohtani is expected to take the mound against the Marlins in the next game of this series, not hitting, just pitching, with that 0.38 ERA on the line and the Dodgers going for the series win. The Cubs still have a series ahead of them against Los Angeles, this time with Ohtani as DH and a decimated pitching staff that is already one more injury away from a full-blown crisis. The collision, the suspension of Nico Hur, the $100,000 fine, the official warning to the Cubs, none of it changes what happens between the lines. The Dodgers keep playing, Ohtani keeps performing. The roster structure doesn't change mid-season. Baseball has been played professionally in the United States for over 150 years. In that time, the sport has produced extraordinary players who changed how the game was understood. But the rulebook has always been written around human limitations. Players are either pitchers or position players. That is the binary the entire structure of roster construction is built on. Shohei Ohtani doesn't fit in the binary. And the rulebook, written long before anyone imagined a player like him, doesn't know what to do with that fact. Craig Counsell isn't wrong about the math. Dave Roberts isn't wrong that Ohtani is a unique case. And Commissioner Manfred isn't wrong that the rule as written is legitimate. The problem is that all three of those things can be simultaneously true, and the sport still has no answer for what happens next. As things stand right now, baseball has never had a player like Shohei Ohtani. The problem is, neither have the rulebooks. If you've made it this far, you already know what kind of content we build on this channel. Real breakdowns, real numbers, real arguments. Hoop Action TV is pushing toward 1,500 subscribers. If this video gave you something to think about, subscribe right now, like this video, share it with someone who takes baseball seriously, and tell us in the comments where you land on this. Should MLB change the two-way player rule? Is Counsell raising a legitimate structural concern, or is he just making excuses for a team that is getting outplayed? Does Ohtani's dominance create an unfair advantage that the league needs to address, or is every team simply responsible for finding their own version of exceptional? Drop your take in the comments below. And if you enjoy real breakdowns like this one, detailed, fact-based, no fluff, if you enjoy real MLB breakdowns like this, you'll like what's coming next.